It's time that we start Effortless versus cha1n here for our second series of the day, where you're watching our latest edition of Quake Pro League. My name is Ketchup, joined by ZSX, and I think there's always a lot to talk about, a lot of players in Pro League, and cha1n and Effortless, I mean, they're no exception, Dan. cha1n's one of those players that we were keeping such a keen eye on for so long, but as of the last couple of stages, I think the eye's on him for a different reason, I think.
No, I couldn't agree more. Like, seems to hit a wall in terms of his progression slightly, and as you rightly pointed out, almost slipped off the radar a little bit in terms of being a challenger at this point. Obviously, incredibly talented and still there or thereabouts, but slipping down the order in terms of results. So this is one he would have his eyes on to try and take away a 3-0 and regain some confidence, because there are more and more people in the Americas now that are putting up a fight, and he is losing out because of that.
And at the same time, Effortless is a player he's always been around, right? And I think that he's been taking it as seriously as anyone else, but remains to be one of those players that is very much he's the example of you win some, you lose some. He has some really good weeks, and he has some weeks where he kind of just falls short a little bit, but he's always kind of stuck in the middle right now. Yeah. And I'd always love to see him kind of step up a little bit more, but yeah, Effortless kind of remains one of those players that you look at him in a week and you never quite know what you're going to get.
Yeah, shades of Spotty in that respect.
Oh, but, I couldn't agree more.
You're completely right. And again, at least he's definitely making positive strides in his performances. I think, thinking back a couple of stages now, there would just be times where a few things wouldn't go his way, and it was almost a series over on map one because mentally he might have checked out. Definitely eliminated a large part of that from his game, which is one of the reasons why he's begun to stabilize, because when he plays his game and finds his stride, and if he gets an early lead and some momentum, he's very, very tough to beat. And as you've already pointed out, it doesn't take a lot for that to start building into confidence for him to begin moving up the leaderboard. And then he didn't end up in relegation last stage, and that will obviously be number one target this stage. Try and get yourself into mid-table.
Just keep it on going. That's all we can ask, I think. We'll take a look at the picks and bans and find out what the journey will be. As it always be, Ruins of Sana first. Mobility being the key factor as it's Sorlag versus Anarchy. Awoken afterwards with, again, some very traditional picks. We have the Ranger and the Galena, especially the Molten Fools to finish up, where we have Heavy versus Light, Scalebearer and Nyx.
Yeah, this is a really interesting draft. Haven't seen Heavy versus Lights in a long time, particularly not two in one series. So cha1n always favoring a positional, slower paced defensive game, and so not too fussed to be having those lights in his corner. Definitely on Ruins, the item control is going to be key. When you're playing against an Anarchy, he can be very strong if he gets a stack, and so for Effortless, it's more about just taking away the light armors, taking away the map. Don't really have to engage them when you feel confident, but press in. But he cannot afford to let cha1n get a quick start and build that stack up, because Anarchy very quickly becomes formidable and no longer a light champion. So you cannot let that happen. And likewise on the final map, cha1n is just going to play around the deficiencies in Scalebearer's size and just want to play the range game. We know cha1n loves to play around the rail, and that's what he's going to do. So it's up to Effortless to find a way to avoid that damage and close the gap.
With the knowledge of your opponent like that, though, picking champions that let you kind of roll with the punches will always be a nice little bonus. You know, being able to kind of get away with one or two extra rails that you otherwise would very much want to avoid that situation. And then we kind of look at the fitting nature of Anarchy almost, where I really love the fact that he is this high-octane champion. There's a wild ride every time you're going up against an Anarchy. But that will come with extreme highs or extreme lows, because we've seen as well when it doesn't work that he just gets absolutely dismantled for 10 minutes when he can't get going and keep that momentum. And these two champions, it's light versus heavy, but they have the same movement. So that's going to be an extra element to things that I'm really curious about. This warm-up's coming to a close as Ruins of Sana is loading in. Effortless versus cha1n. We'll see how the results could be. Let's see a 2-1 either way, but now Effortless first. He's going to get the side near. Actually, not a terrible spawn for him to have. He's going to get some of the important weapons already. And just like that, LG, Rail, Heavy, Super Shotgun, pretty much good to go.
But big rockets from cha1n, 2-100s. He's got the injects as well. Pushes in, but he still dies. Effortless coming away with 6 HP. Interesting start. Oh no! Deletes it.
That was one-shot wonder right there.
And that is literally the weakness of a light champion in a nutshell. Wow.
Yeah, we were just talking about that with Anarchy, and then before we know it, bang! I look at Anarchy, and he's dead. But
that
now,
was so satisfying. Just boom.
able to take the light armor. Unfortunately, the forever existing nature of ruins, where those lights are kind of out in no man's land. And you're often going to have to trade out some kind of free damage taking it. You know, the risk is there. cha1n not able to hit those rails either, which is really bad news!
Nice.
Even worse. The acid.
And cha1n is such a rail-dependent player. If it does not start connecting, he's in a bit of trouble. Effortless chasing down, he knows there's no weapons to play with. Rails back-to-back, another shotgun blast in the face, and this is a commanding early lead. 4-0, a minute and a half in. He just needs to maintain the tempo. He's in a solid spot. The items are on the same time, more or less, so that does give cha1n a good lifeline. Effortless might try and find a way to bully his opponent off the map so he can take both. And that's the objective here, going in with the shotgun once again. Wow, his mouse began to spin out a little bit, and that gives a free frag for cha1n somehow.
Yeah, you could see the idea behind that play, right, was to push out, get damage, maybe even a frag, especially with the super shotgun doing as much work as it could, and then you can back up and take the mega to keep the pressure going. I like that choice from cha1n, though, when he does manage to get the frag, rather than just pushing in and trying to take the mega. He prioritizes heavy, knowing there's an injection stocked up and plenty of time to get those kind of light pickups. The armor is going to be a lot more important in this stage. You know, oh, hang on a minute.
Oh, interesting. If he misses his rocket and Effortless pushes through, he could be in trouble here. He's quite weak. Effortless knows exactly what's up. He drops onto him. Spit comes out as well. cha1n's got the inject. He's forcing it out, and he just managed to escape. He hits the rail. Effortless just railable.
That was such an interesting sequence. An ambush point that is not particularly common, but now, what does cha1n do from the hand that he's been dealt? Effortless has a giant stack. Classic in the nature of these large champions, but now it's positioning. Center point of the map. That's what Effortless had a full control on for the couple of minutes, but now it's in the hand of cha1n. That's what I'm looking at, man. Those rails. Can he start hitting those rails to just chunk away at that giant stack of saw lag? And that death scream, that's going to be the green light to swap to a different weapon. The rail's done its job.
He's begun connecting. Effortless back onto the map though, but cha1n is grinding his way back into this game. He's pushing in here, misses the rail. He's going to just have to try and get out. Effortless rocket jumping across, doesn't have any weapons beyond a rocket, so can't make much of a move here. Waits around for the rail, does get out, and cha1n does what cha1n does. Wants to play high ground, wants to play slower, just works off his rail. If he connects, he'll push. If he doesn't, he'll back off.
Aggressive rocket jump. And then some. Ooh, unfortunately though, there's going to be some bonus damage that Effortless takes on the way back. There's still going to be one of the items. Better than nothing. Timing on the heavy too. But looking for these rails. Effortless, the forbidden fruit of that light armor. Just can't take the risk. You get hit by a rail out there, and then what do you do?
Nice. And it's better to see Effortless playing like this. That rocket jump up again could have felled his doom, and it's just a definition of pushing limits for no real reason. So need to see a more calculated play, which is happening now. Again, items still on the same time. Effortless putting a slight delay on. I think that'll be too impactful for cha1n. Once again, they're pretty much on the same time. So quite happy to exchange those major items and just play this range game. And Effortless has settled into cha1n's tempo now.
Especially as they're kind of consistently having the same rail angle on each other, but they're being so careful not to overpeak that there's almost like barely an angle existing in the first place. However, before I can even say it, 3 in a row, and that gives cha1n the opportunity to tie things up. Now, Effortless, he spawns near the rail, so he doesn't have to go out of his way to pick it up, so it could be worse spawns, all things considered. And now, all he's lacking is an LG, and I think he's on the way to try and remedy that.
And he's just struggling to close the gap at this point. cha1n is now looking comfortable. He's getting into this mid ground quite easily and just playing a rail game which Effortless is responding when they're not really connecting. Big push in though. This time he has closed the gap. The inject comes out, but it's not going to matter. Gets absolutely melted for a clean frag. The heavy's up now. Don't think Effortless knows that. He's waiting around for the mega. cha1n might not be able to get both here. His Effortless can get this mega on point, but doesn't. Misses the rail as well, so it gets cha1n back onto the map. Now he needs to get some weapons.
Effortless has that knowledge. No, that's a really, really bad time to swap weapon. Just couldn't have known he was going to come blitzing around that corner at that moment. You know, if he knew, he'd have had a shotgun or a rocket, anything that wasn't an LG. And that could have even spelled a dead cha1n right there. However, now what that means is that cha1n gets away with a lot more stack. Effortless, very little stack, but I think a chance to maybe take this mega. We're going to have to concede the heavy in doing so, but keeping his lead. And now we'll keep all the angles, all the weapons. And he's just sticking his ear to the ground, listening out for an ambush. There it is.
It's going to tick down as well. He's taking so much damage from the spit here. Still but manages to get a frag on top of that as well. No matter how much damage he did, he's very weak now. Effortless will know how weak he is. Expect the tempo to increase. cha1n's a little bit stuck here, but Effortless cannot push in. Rocket is too strong.
I felt the frustration in Effortless's face right there. Such a beautiful rocket jump, knowing he's going to not only go up top, but then back off towards those light armors. He had it lined up and ready to go. He just missed the rail, and that is going to be the worst kind of frag to concede when, on paper, that was yours. And he is going to push in with that Hyper Blaster, unfortunately. A trade occurs thanks to the injection. And a much better spawn for cha1n. But he takes damage. The lights! I mean, he doesn't spawn with anything. 1 HP!
Oh no, he spawned below! No! Oh, that's a rage quit territory there. 2 negative spawns from Effortless point of view. Jesus. I mean, you should have predicted that was the spawn you were gonna get, but you have to. I guess you have to risk it
for a biscuit.
There you go.
1 frag. That's all they need to take the lead. There's only 2.5 minutes left on the clock. This is going to be a rather pivotal point, you know, because these are 2 players. They're looking pretty even so far. I think the favor is starting to go on the side of cha1n. Effortless had such a good start. But what Effortless I'm worried about is he is severely lacking in important weapons. And
he's got a shotgun now. We saw what happened last time he used that.
But it's all he's got.
He's going to go for it. Oh.
28 damage. That'll do.
Bit of a standoff here as they both know what's up. He's pushing in. The rail's there, though. Oh, that could have come back to haunt cha1n.
Looking to beat him to the mega. Now, Effortless taking the mega. That's going to naturally put a delay between the 2, which I think is a good setup. As now, definitely expecting cha1n to push forward rather than pulling that hard right. Hang on a minute. We're going to push in aggressively. All the way,
nice.
Effortless.
Dropping.
Oh, there it is. And now with that delay between the 2 items, Effortless has a chance to pull ahead and then some thanks to that rail.
So messy. cha1n going in with the tri-bolt. He's connecting.
No.
Somehow he's chipping him down.
He's got no shots. So he's out of ammo. Effortless. He had no ammo for that whole fight, and he just didn't even find out because there was no click.
What the hell is going on in this game?
Was he trying to swap to a different weapon and he didn't have it or something?
No, he didn't realize.
I have no idea what happened there, but that's
so
a huge.
Catch
it
up.
has to. That is a huge choke, Dan. The injection used to nullify the acid, something that's been utilized all of this map. The direct counter to this situation, just to shut down information too, right? You run away from the acid, I know where you're going, I can see the numbers. But now what happens? Effortless, that was a hit. What happened?
How do you die to a tri-bolt anarchy with no health? What? Oh, whatever, we got to reset.
Look at my gun, I like this gun a lot.
Oh no, he's hit 2 and he hasn't even got an item. This could be GG for Effortless. His cha1n is fully stacked. He's got the inject coming out for cooldown. He's got a mega waiting for him, and the Sorlak's just running out of time.
We ask what can be done as the sudden death, which has already started and is now about to become official. A nice rail from Effortless to start a little bit of a dent in the armor. But cha1n, the bigger factor here is full control over the map, and he pushes it aggressively. That, I mean, does he push forward? Does cha1n take that risk?
No, he knows that it could have been Doom. He had less than 120, and you just can never know walking around that corner. So smart play by cha1n, but Effortless is just on the ropes. No items up for 20. He has to get onto a light, but cha1n will be hunting those lights now.
Yeah, he's railable. He's 2 HP of railable. 89. Finally picks up one, but he still can't get hit. There he is. Misses the rail.
GG.
That's the one. God, what happened at the end of that map? The game-changing moment near Heavy, where he pushes forward, he hits the opening shot, and then somehow that just does not go his way. Got the super shotgun. That we sit there for the whole fight, looking at the 0 ammo, and it's like expecting him to just change. What happened?
I mean,
I hope we got a replay of that. I need to watch it back.
Literally the only thing Effortless could have done to lose that game, and he managed to do it. I cannot believe that happened. I don't think Effortless can believe that happened.
Definitely not. We almost got to see that fight in slow motion. It was so drawn out because of it.
Oh my god.
I'm genuinely just waiting. I'm waiting for us to hit that point. I need to see it again.
I don't think I can stomach it. I might throw up.
Oh, I feel for him. I really, really do. Because this was such an exchange and Effortless played so well. A couple of instances.
It's coming up in a second. Oh, this is the back-to-back frags.
I think it's the next one. I think it was the next fight.
Because the thing is, you also hit a rail off the spawn. Yes, the inject came out, but
all right,
this is it. This is it. Oh no, just swap anything, please. Just.
Ah. Oh, it's even worse to watch in slow motion. It is. Because that was when it all went wrong. From that point, cha1n established full control over the map, the timing on the items, but more importantly, the high ground and the rail angles. And that was something that Effortless, he's left with the scraps that remain. And from that point, it was all cha1n. Man, I feel bad.
Yeah, I mean, to regroup after that start, though, from cha1n, you have to give him some credit there. Effortless had an amazing start, going up 4 frags early on and was connecting and having all the right choices. But as soon as cha1n got control himself, he managed to stabilize and play a slower tempo and keep Effortless at bay, keep him at range. He wasn't playing the cleanest game, he wasn't connected with all the rails, but that's what cha1n does pretty well. He picks and chooses his battles, and even if he doesn't connect, he finds a way to reset and get it back into a strong position. So Effortless couldn't break that barrier until the very end, and then we saw what happened from there on out. And as soon as cha1n managed to get that fairly fortunate frag, he didn't let it slip.
Yeah, it's when life gives you lemons, right? You make lemonade, and sometimes you win a map. Because cha1n now going in with more, I think, utility on his side. Access to totems all the way through, which I always love watching, like nice totem management on Awoken. One of the more prominent maps where it can be an absolute game changer if they're not being scouted out. Sometimes to go out of your way to look for them wastes a couple of seconds. Seconds wasted can be an item just not going your way. So there's many things to factor in. I think Effortless is, I believe actually, yeah, we should be readying up soon. And if memory serves, I believe the Ranger was his pick. So it's going to be the mediums this time. Yeah, he's back. He's back now. We're going to jump in. But when that kind of map happens, which is just the most disastrous frag to concede that leads to a map loss, and that's what makes it feel worse, is that it by all means, I think, cost the map in the end. You have no choice but to just shake it off and forget about it. And you have to take it one map at a time. So many players in their end series interviews, I think they get asked the question of keeping their composure, their clutch, their head in the game. And it always seems to be at this level, you have no choice but to just take each separate map as its own new refresher. And if you start thinking about other things, your head's not in the game. And that can cause you to lose a map. Awoken is going to demand that. As the Battle of Mediums comes through, we're loading in now. We'll be jumping in a few seconds' time, I think.
Yeah, and it's interesting in a league format because obviously in a tournament the pressure ramps if you lose a map, because if you lose a second one, you could just be out of a tournament down to a lower bracket. Whereas in a league, it's for points, it's for money. So it is a little bit easier, I would say. Obviously not being in the situation, but to reset mentally and get back into the series, because it's not as if you lost a map, it means you're out. It just means you haven't got your bonus for the day. So get back into it, get some points. And he's going to have to. At the end of the day, like, you have to take some consolation from the fact that I think he had a good map all round. Mm-hmm. And bar that, blunder, he probably would have walked away with a victory. So that's something to work with.
Well, as we jump into Awoken, a map that we've seen Effortless display quite a large amount of creativity on. He's had some really nice kind of trick jumps, and particularly with the Nyx, if I recall. It was some time ago, but I still have fond memories of that Effortless map. But now a good start. Effortless, LG in hand. Very much all he has, apart from this Tri-Bolt. The only form of area denial that he has so far. The aggressive push onto the light armor, actually. Now, he takes a rather severe trade in damage, but I think the calculation of knowing exactly how much he has to back up to soften the blow. And a good chance now to get an all-important rail. Not having a rail on Awoken against a range-based opponent is a miserable experience.
And there it goes into play. Actually, cha1n putting a totem into a tricky situation up top as well, but those back-to-back rails really stings. This is one of the things you just have to find a way to play around cha1n's rail. That's all he wants to do, and Effortless this time in the map didn't do that.
Ooh, clean little opening. Effortless, not much of an angle available. Somehow able to find the shot anyway. Impressive start, looking for another one. Has the angle set up for that heavy. Unfortunately, with the miss, knows that cha1n, a major push. However, a chance that he had still to take the Mega. Now, Effortless is on death's door here. But if he can at least survive, shut down these angles, he knows he's there. He's looking for it. Oh! I saw that one from Effortless's point of view. That was almost a headshot.
A little bit of trouble here as well. Nothing to work with. cha1n's even going to be pushing in, even though that's not the item that's up. He just wants a frag, and he's bullied Effortless off, taking away the light as well. Actually, not taking away the light as that jump doesn't connect. And because of that slight overextension, he now trades items when he should have got both. But that rail is big, once again, offsetting all of the pickups from Effortless. cha1n is looking much more solid on this map than at the start of the previous.
Gets a decent Tri-Bolt, but with cha1n's superior stack and the fact that he lands the rail in return, not really an exchange that you can say favors Effortless all that much. The aggressive play, oh, somehow not able to hit it. Looks for the rail angle again, and these rail angles, the existence of them alone is making life scary for Effortless. Even though he spawned on LG side, he actually still hasn't picked up an LG.
Oh no!
Stream would have probably missed that. I'm assuming you were watching that from Effortless's point of view as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, missed his dire orb. That one hurts.
Yeah, that's pretty painful. As now cha1n has all the momentum and clean pickups, so Effortless has to find a way to stall this progression from cha1n. That's a good start with one opening, but the double back from cha1n is huge, connected with 2 rockets. Oh. Also walk through a totem as well.
A rather tricky position to drop them down sometimes. You know, in the heat of the moment, you have to escape. A lovely rail that he's prepared for. Make that 2. And at this point, he doesn't need another. And he knows it, man, does the maths. Actually quite like that. Using the jump pad to throw an even more creative totem without having to go too far out. Keeps that positioning play. Takes a rail. But now, the rocket launcher, that's all Effortless has. Oh no, never mind. I'm a complete idiot. He has a rail.
Yeah, he picked one up. But he's also was in the vicinity way too early for this heavy. He's just going to try and hit a rail from afar. Doesn't even manage to do that. And actually, just get knocked down. This is not going Effortless's way. All of his moves are just failing. This time he gets onto the Mega. It cost him an orb, though. Definitely a worthwhile trade for him.
cha1n continuing this put. I actually like his use of the totem so far as well. He's been making sure to just put them in places he knows Effortless is just unlikely to be able to go near so far. And often in duel, it tends to be kind of split this map into 2, don't you? I think one player prioritizes one and then vice versa on the other until there's some kind of significant rotation presenting itself, which can open up some interesting totem games from Galena, where she can kind of just back off and it's just a free access to health in a part of the map where there's already a lot of health to take.
Yeah, but she's not been near overstacked just yet. This might be the first time she has 2 totems down. So Effortless is also doing a good job of sweeping them up. That's some nice damage though, but there's nothing to fight for. So it's just testing each other, seeing if there's any overcommittal. cha1n comes out definitely on top of that exchange as well. He sees he's got a light to fall back on, so he's quite happy to push up. But Effortless hitting 2. He doesn't even get the health from it, which means an easy frag for Effortless, and somewhat fortunate as cha1n just makes the first big mistake of the game, taking that engagement.
Yeah, with the health he was currently on, I think that taking the totem health still would have actually resulted in him getting killed by what he got hit by, but I guess it's just the nature of it being a mistake, right? Execution error. Stuff that can fluster you a little bit, and cha1n looking like he was a bit disappointed with that. But with the 5-minute warning, and the fact that cha1n already has 2 frags here, this is not the kind of slow-paced, not many frag game kind of map that you see. Woken tends to be a lot more aggressive. The push-in, that rail angle was set up, but unfortunately the miss. Effortless's rail, it has not been 100% on it so far, and that rocket was so good for cha1n to open up a situation. But the rocket in return, just as good. Wow, okay. A lot of range coming through, piece by piece.
Incredibly slow game now. 3-1 on Awoken at this period of time is unusual to say the best, but it's actually going to suit Effortless as cha1n had dominance for a large period of the game, pushing up quite early for the Mega as well. Effortless trying to push him, but actually gets knocked off, manages to orb up there when cha1n is caught off guard because of that, so nice move by Effortless. He tries to get around early to the heavy. Luckily, cha1n gets a far enough spawn that Effortless can get away.
A lovely rail as he backs off. He's going to have the advantage knowing that cha1n doesn't have a rail so far though. So you know that cha1n's going to play this slippery game. We've only just spawned with a little bit of utility, but with 1 frag in the lead, we're going to try and stay hard to detect. And that's why Effortless is going to put such emphasis now on just listening. Where is cha1n? How can I potentially trap him?
And this is where cha1n's playstyle can come back to haunt him. He doesn't rack up a lot of frags, tries to cut off Effortless, but this doesn't work.
Misses
the rail is questionable though. cha1n managed to pepper a little bit of damage down, but there's a long time before the Mega. But look at the damage!
That's a scary position now as cha1n with a little bit of heavy machine gun spray is all it takes. Put himself into an upper hand. Delicious combo. Just like that.
Yep,
it's going to be cha1n extending his lead. That was such a wonderful opportunity for Effortless, but again, cha1n just hits the damage that he needs. Speaking of which, hang on a minute. Does a lot of damage, all things considered, but plenty of chances to lick his wounds. The heavy in control, an aggressive LG play, and I think this could be the end of the map. The second it starts to go down this way. Oh, he's got the machine gun and that's it. Could be worse spawns.
cha1n not too happy with that, but Effortless threw away a couple of frags, but he's in control now, gets the item, but he needs to be careful. cha1n looking healthy off that spawn as well. Effortless just needs to play the items for the past 2.5 minutes. If he lets cha1n onto the map at all, it could spell the final nail in his coffin, but he still definitely has a chance.
Ooh, the rockets are fantastic.
And shut down.
And a lovely rail on spawn just to make matters worse. Has got the dire orb, but he's so weak. Is there even any point? Uses it to steal the Mega. Oh, but the rocket is so good. And that is where knowledge of opponent's weaponry, or lack of in that case, comes back to haunt. With Effortless, pushes in the best he can, but there's only so much you can do when you're close enough for a rocket to just delete with the 100 damage. And it's Awoken, right? It's a small map. I want to say that I believe in the possibility, but you know that cha1n is going to shift gear. We're going to go into defensive mode now. And with a rail in hand, granted, only a rail. Can he waste enough time? Misses a shot, and that's going to create something for Effortless. Can he get just good spawns now? Can he find what needs to be found? Aggressive push again, Effortless. No!
Nice!
Hits it. If he didn't hit that, I'd been very nervous.
There is still hope. He's got the items. He's got enough for one more round of items and needs, as you say, a clean frag and a spawn, which is entirely possible on a map like Awoken. cha1n knows how important it is to do damage. Big rockets coming out. Defensive players there, 5 seconds. Effortless can't push. He just needs items at this point, and then has to go for the Hail Mary or have an orb as well. If he can get the frag without using the orb, that is exactly what he needs. cha1n just using that information to run away. He's caught here. Needs another follow-up rail. The second one misses. The orb has to come out to chase. And big rockets again from cha1n. It's not enough. He's going in aggressive, and that settles it. cha1n takes a narrow victory in map 2. Pushed to the wire once again by Effortless. And I think if we're looking at this map in context, we have to highlight one moment. It was the use of the rail after such a great play up in the T-Con, where Effortless then got bullied off the map by cha1n. Like, the smallest of errors really come back to haunt him.
especially at the end. There's that tiny area near where Tribolt is that we saw the rockets come through, and even though it's such a tiny part of the map, somehow the rocket damage was just non-existent. You very rarely kind of see those close quarters encounters with rocket spam in that instance where you get like 20 damage, and I think the second one did barely 40. And if those two rockets just did a little bit of extra damage, that would have given a push opportunity, but there was just nothing for cha1n to worry about. Very unfortunate there for Effortless, and spent a lot of the end of that game without even having kind of the weapons he needed. He pushed in and did the best he could, but cha1n's able to somehow find this insane set of damage. But playing well.
Yeah, Effortless stabilized. It was that period of dominance at the start, first 4.5 minutes, where cha1n was connecting with everything, had about 75% rail, but then Effortless got back into the game, managed to pull it close, but there was just a little bit too far. Here we thought it was gone, but 3 minutes to go. Effortless somehow again gets this frag. cha1n maybe a little bit too aggressive. He brought it so close.
I don't think we're ever going to get tired of the player reactions. Never, ever, ever. But, man, this damage at the end. It was right here. Just not able to hit the damage. Just barely able to get it. I guess it could have just where he was standing at the time. The rockets kind of almost shot through.
Yeah.
But either way, it's going to be an awoken going into the favor of cha1n. cha1n playing well, but I'm going to be honest, it still doesn't quite look like the cha1n of old. It doesn't look like what the cha1n that was during that climb, that rise, where at a point he was undisputed top 2.
Yeah, the map has somewhat shifted as well. Playing a much more aggressive style of Quake nowadays than we were back then. Moving towards heavier champions, faster paced game. Back then when it was lighter champions, it really fell into cha1n's lap a little bit, that defensive play style, similar with base. Both of them haven't hit the same highs as we were back then. Also the change in the map pool as well, obviously, back when we had the Blood Run and the Blood Covenant. So they were maps cha1n was proficient on as well. But he's still there or thereabouts in mid-level NA, not quite top 2-3 as he was, but still a key challenger. I think similar to how we used to talk about with Wenger a little bit. I just would love to see cha1n taking maps away from opponents, so really progressing his advantage. Once again, this map could have gone Effortless's way, largely because cha1n was not pressing his advantage. He gets into his nice stable rhythm, plays a distance game, doesn't go super aggro and really strip the map of all resources and take the map away from opponents and suffocates them. So it's an area he can work on, and we've seen him do it, but not often enough. And this is a map now where he won't be able to do that anywhere near as much because he's going up against a scale bearer. On
a large open map such as Molten Falls, no less, where you, for another time, expect Rail to be the star player here, because there are plenty of chances to just keep that distance between you. But at the same time, you just have to avoid those situations where it puts you in what can very much sometimes be a checkmate. You know, you're in that close range scenario, he's got the weapons, he's got a bull rush, and say goodbye. And it just comes down to the juggling of those different abilities that we bring forward. But positioning just mattering so much more for cha1n than it is for Effortless right now. You know, if you're not hitting that range damage as we go into the items, then Effortless will just push in. He's demonstrating above all else today that he is still very brave, I think, as a player. He's not afraid to make the big pushes. Sometimes for better or worse, it's the nature of being aggressive. But with this matchup, heavy versus light, those large plays that you put forward, especially if you have a stack, it becomes less risky to go for those plays.
Yeah, on the counter, it also is, how do I close the gap against my opponent without taking too much damage? So if he can do that, and if he can exchange damage or hit the unreturned damage, that's where the openings really start to emerge. But as you said, positioning from cha1n is one of his strengths, and it has to be on point when you're playing a Nyx against a scale bearer. Have to play that high ground, have to play the range game, and also have to avoid any damage. He's done a great deal of damage there, but because he's light, he's also extremely weak. Effortless comes out 3 HP, and cha1n gets away this time, but also could have gone in his head if he didn't hit a couple of great rockets.
Now, item timing is going to become key right now, as I love that play from cha1n, just really knowing that Effortless was going to come around that way. They traded ability for ability. We used the bull rush. We all kind of knew that the Ghost Walk was coming to nullify it, but then without those two factors, who's picked up what on the map, what's going to be the next item, and then we're both kind of weak, right? And then it's going to be one champion that's really easy to hit and hear versus one that's not so easy. And I think that was a great play from cha1n. And there's that Ghost Walk. We're going to start to cycle them in between. Looking to be aggressive still, but now there's nothing. Get some good damage, though, all things considered.
Don't think the bull rush did any damage.
No, it ran out right before he touched him. Yes.
Yeah, which is why we see a little bit of face Effortless, but to your point, catch up. Trading abilities always favors the scale barrier here because that next without the Ghost Walk is just incredibly vulnerable. So it's a good job by Effortless to use that ability to, as you say, cause that trade.
So many tricky things a talented Nyx can do with that. I think if you're able to force it out, it just makes every play maybe that little bit simpler. Less to calculate. An aggressive push and no Ghost Walk available. Not in time, but they trade it. cha1n finds the damage.
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating as Effortless definitely thought he had the frag there, opening shotgun. Bull rush as well, and now that Ghost Walk's back off cooldown, cha1n could be a little bit more ballsy pushing him to try and hit these rail, get these angles. He wants to control that weapon as well.
Many victories for cha1n there. Able to score a trade situation, has a good spawn where he can take the item, and there was, at least, an offset between those abilities. So if there was that chance to make Ghost Walk an aggressive play or some kind of weird throwing off or whatever Nyx is able to do. Hasn't happened now. But I like that management from cha1n. That was good saving of it. I think a lot of players out there would have definitely heard a bull rush and just used the Ghost Walk just reactively, but cha1n, knowing he's far enough away, there's no way he can be reached.
No, but also the chip damage from Effortless has been really strong. cha1n not able to build himself a sufficient stack to push out onto the map, so he's playing ultra defensive at this point. Working around, using those sound cues to try and trap Effortless, do chip damage of his own. He's up as well. Effortless wants to sneak in, but he's caught big rockets from cha1n, and that is clean.
As clean as it gets, barely any damage in return. And not the first time that cha1n has caught Effortless with a hiding spot that is not common. Not the kind of thing that people would expect. Effortless, fresh off spawn, gets all the important weapons. That Unholy Trinity is locked and loaded, but we need more than that now. cha1n keeps control, the information, constantly just listening out. Effortless trying to create some rail angles of his own. But I think that cha1n maintains the control here. Armor is going to belong to him, which allows him to, at the very least, just compete with a standard stack of the heavies.
He knows the time in the Mega as well, so he's going in aggressive through the low ground, and Effortless has missed out on the whole map now. He's delaying the item, putting a good split onto it. This opens up a nice door for cha1n to play a bit more aggressive now. Effortless may have heard the pickups, but the question is, can he do any damage to get onto them?
And everywhere on the map that cha1n goes from this point, there are light resources to back up to if he needs them. And if he's on them, it means that Effortless isn't. There hasn't been any damage exchanged yet. However, if we see even one fight and Effortless can't get to any of these important items, the aggressive push from cha1n could be real, and this is why cha1n having perfect timing was so good. He backs out, and he can kind of just make that next play, but here comes an aggressive! Almost off the map! The counterplay once more for the Ghost Walk. Can cha1n find it? Effortless, no! Around the corner. I mean, he makes the push. He doesn't want to give up this entire chunk of the map, but a rocket was in his future. Oh dear, we fall down. That's going to be a free pickup.
And the snowball begins just before the heavy as well. It'll take away the light if it's there from Effortless. Holding the angle, he knows Effortless wants to push, and there goes the light as well, so just taking all the resources away. Plenty of time to push up onto the high ground and defend this heavy as well, so Effortless is in a little bit of trouble here. This is where it becomes difficult. He has to try and find a way to land a rail before he pushes in, because cha1n is quite happy for him to push in and close the gap because of his size. He's winning these close combat engagements, and once again the bull rush comes out, but it's such a distance he can just Ghost Walk away. It should be an easy frag!
I cannot remember the last time I saw one of those, Dan. Feels good. Not for Effortless, though.
Definitely not. Now 4 frags, you're playing it to Nyx. If she wants to, can just retreat, play around the Ghost Walk, use the double jump and speed to get away. So this is definitely an uphill road now.
It's going to be quite remarkable if Effortless is able to pull off this comeback. Odds stacked against him. full control for cha1n, and even before he landed that telefrag, I think Effortless pushing forward maybe was trying to kind of put himself on Mega, but we still had a solid 8 seconds before it was going to appear. And cha1n's superior timing across both of these items, it's just allowed him to be so much more calculated on this entire map. Effortless left with the scraps. But for another time, I'm going to look at the control, actually. 9 of each of the major items for cha1n. 3 heavies and 2 megas for Effortless. I know he's a heavy, but even then, that is savage. Because cha1n is never behind. He's never running. He's never licking his wounds. 100 damage!
Nice.
And a simple 12 for the second rocket. That is how weak Effortless was. And the denial continues. Mega and the light armor. Effortless has nothing. This is going to be a hard ask to make this comeback. Ghost Walk used perfectly again to nullify. And the scale bearer factor has just not existed on this map at all. cha1n has played the matchup absolutely flawlessly.
Definitely. It doesn't feel like he's been massively tested as well. It's all been on his terms. It hasn't felt like Effortless has tried anything particularly innovative to change the tempo here. But that's again credit to cha1n. He's just played masterfully in terms of positioning and not allowed any ins for Effortless. Wasn't taking any unnecessary damage. All the engagements are on his terms, and you see how difficult it is. It means being that heavy almost means nothing.
Another aggressive push, one that is unlikely to need, well, any resources. And by him not appearing, means that cha1n can delay the 2 of them, even more so than was already there. This has got to be cha1n's GG. A mistimed bull rush. Maybe trying to beat him through the jump pad probably would have created some kind of free damage. Ghost Walk being available, though, meant things would have been tricky to secure all the same, and I think we're just going to go through the motions. Yeah, we're done. The tactical, just to respawn with more.
We are done.
I think it clearly must have just been like, he's super weak, he may as well just respawn with a fresh stack with the heavy about to spawn, but it's done, I think.
Yeah, this is done. 2 minutes to go. You're never getting 6 frags against the next few. You can outplay you positionally. She's got that Ghost Walk. And Effortless just running around, a bit like a headless chicken at this point, not entirely sure what to do.
And with the bull rush being used as the item spawns, Mega is the next objective, but there's really nothing. Eey! A rare rail miss from cha1n. That one really should have been easy. But like we've said, I very much think this is going to be a done deal. Effortless kind of just playing this game of hide and seek for the last minute and a half, preventing cha1n from getting any more bonus frags. But a rare sight that a scale bearer gets handled in this fashion. It just looked like a complete non-issue.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, the big difference was that item control.
Absolutely.
Effortless was unable to get anything. 5 major items all game, can't even pick it one in the late game. This is the cha1n we saw from a couple of stages ago. And he needs to find a way to get back in. And again, this was a good balance for him in terms of it wasn't too passive, which is why he was able to suffocate and take away the map.
And from this point, like I said, it's going to be just that 45 seconds of finishing what needs to be done. That's the gauntlet throwdown. Cut him in half, just like that. The power of the gauntlet. Slice and dice. I feel for Effortless, though. I don't feel like Effortless played bad today. I think in this final map, cha1n just had that immediate grasp at the very beginning. The moment that control got locked in, it was very much cha1n's map for the remainder of the, like 9 minutes, maybe more. And from that point, there was very little Effortless could do to get himself back into the game. The management, cha1n just playing as reactionary as he was. It was very much, I think, Effortless making that first play and cha1n following it in kind.
Absolutely, and there was a glimmer of hope in the early game, but as soon as cha1n got that clean frag over by the heavy, it just snowballed, and he got the split between the items. He played great. He was pressing out between that split to make sure he did enough damage to mitigate any advance or pressure from Effortless. And really, Effortless could not respond. He found no angles to initiate on cha1n. He wasn't able to pressure any items, and he was kind of just a running sitting duck for the kind of final 6 minutes of that map.
But there's a lot to reflect on. I think mostly, more prominently, that first map was the one that I think I'm remembering the most. Awoken, absolutely just some key moments where things could have been better than they were. And then that final map, which was very much the chain show, Effortless just didn't have an opportunity to establish himself there. It's rare that you see someone, I think, play a matchup as perfectly as he did there with the Scale Bearer. It just didn't look like the champion, especially seeing as we'd just seen Venger's Scale Bearer be as assertive as it was, looking almost impossible to challenge. Yes, it's a different map, different flow, but at the same time, the use of the Ghost Walk alone meant that when the Bull Rush came through, it just didn't exist.
Exactly, and I think you raised it. It's the fact that Nyx in the right hands can just look almost overpowered. There's very few players in the world that play her to that level, but it just shows that even though she's not picked that often, when she's picked in the right situation and played in the right way, this is how it could turn out. And it was, again, played perfectly. I think Effortless definitely didn't have his best game, but even still, that was because of the pressure that was put on by cha1n and the way he played the Nyx. But we look in the context of this series, and you pointed it out, on another day, this really could have been a 2-1 Effortless victory. Map 1 probably should have been his way. Map 2 could have been, beyond one big mistake where he gave up a frag over by cha1n when he should have been his frag. Who knows? It could have been a 2-1, but this map never was his. This was cha1n through and through.
But well played by cha1n, and it's always kind of nice to see him have those maps where he locks on perfect control. Because Nyx at that level, it's hard to play. She is a light champion. She's squishy as anything. Ghost Walk, if you use it wrong once, can just spell disaster for the rest of the map. So I always kind of love watching Pro League to kind of really show the best in the business, making it look easy when it definitely isn't. But we're a third of the way through, folks. We have more maps to come, and our third series about to start off. We're going to go for a quick break. When we come back, Quake Pro League will continue.